Right, we're back on the tanks. It's been a while because I've been doing all the messing around. We've got the 165 AVRE back in the workshop because if you can remember, if any of you are following us, we took it to a show, Operation Market Harbour, a couple of weeks ago, and we had some power issues, and it wasn't. It would run right for the first couple of seconds, and then it went from running on 12 to running on 6. And when we took the plugs out, we could actually tell, I mean, I've actually muddled these up now and they've actually dried out, but you can actually tell from the plugs. If you can imagine, obviously it's a V12 engine and you've got 6 pistons this side, 6 the other. What we found was that halfway along the side, so the back end of the engine, 3 plugs you could tell were wet, they weren't firing. On both sides. So the engine, if you cut it in half, was basically a V6. You could tell that the front 3 and front 6 either side, either bank, were working, and the rear 6 were wet and obviously not firing. Now we know we got good spark. We took the plugs off there and checked all that. So the only thing it could be was carburetor issues. We got good fuel pressure to the carbs, and the fuel bowl in both carbs was good, with good fuel pressure. When you took the cap off, it was leaking out the top when you pushed the float down. So we know we got good fuel pressure, we got good spark, and it's a brand new crated engine, so you'd think the compression would be okay. So what we did the other day, me and Charlie just whipped the carb out of the end. So if you look at here, that lovely job of that we all enjoy, taking the inlet all out, which we've now got on the bench down here. Ow. And what we sort of worked out obviously is, this is obviously the carb system, the inlet, the plenum, whatever you want to call it. We've actually took the carb that we think's bad off. And the way it sits in the tank, it sits in this way, and obviously this is the side that feeds the bank that I thought was working. So if you can imagine, one carb sort of does 6 cylinders, so 3 this side, 3 the other, and then the other carb does the other 3. So it's like 2 V6s joined together, the way the carbs sort of work. And we were pretty confident that this carb was working okay. It always started straight up, and it dragged itself along very slowly. Won't drag itself out of a hole, if you can remember. So we decided it's got to be this carb. So when we first put the engine in, we had to take the inlet out because the floats had both stuck. So when we actually fueled up the engine, it was dribbling petrol out of there, which is a sign that the floats were stuck, and obviously they were. The engine had been stood in a box since 1992, and the shaft, the pivot on the float shaft was just seized up with a bit of corrosion. So we did all that, put it back together, and then it never really had any power. We took it to that show thinking it'll help, and it never really got over it. But anyway, so we've took it off. We found quite a lot of crap. So all of that stuff there has come out of these galleries. You know, bits in there, but mainly there was a piece of brass which I put here, and there was quite a few pieces of brass like that, and it was all getting jammed up and actually blocking this jet here, and that's really the worst I could find. All that garbage was sat in the bottom of the float bowl, if you like. I mean, that isn't good. So whether that was just soil and stuff that was in the carb, or whether that was just stuff already in the line. Obviously we are running fuel filters, so there shouldn't be any bad fuel getting to the carbs. And we did look in there, and it wasn't that bad when we took it to bits, but obviously using it harbour at war,
yeah, it's obviously
really, you know, we actually used it, we didn't just run it up for 20 seconds. So anyway, we looked down a couple of the galleries, we took all the things out, and you can actually see that this particular carb has some quite poor castings where they're drilled down to the jets. You can see like down there, and there was still swarf and stuff stuck at the end, and obviously that had quite a lot of that brass swarf stuck in that jet. So I just think it was probably a bit of a rush job, or just a poor carb. So I'm actually, although I'm happy that it's clean now, I'm not going to fit it back on because it's a customer vehicle. And I've amazingly got some brand new old stock carbs, which are in perfect condition, and I will just double check them. So I've got 2 brand new ones. Now, I'm pretty confident that one's okay. I will just check the jets before we put it back together, but I'm pretty confident that's going to be okay. So I'm only going to replace the one that we know has been faulty, and I'm pretty sure now that will be fine, but I shall just keep that for myself and one of my own vehicles. I'm not going to send it out to the States, a customer vehicle with a dodgy carb. So we'll put him a brand new old stock one on, and we'll know then that it's right. I want him to get it and actually be happy with it, because it's all right if you me and you can mend stuff, but not everyone can. You don't want to spend a load of money on a vehicle and then realise you can't play with it because it's broke. That'd be a bit disappointing. So we're going to check that one out. We'll then fit that car back up, and we'll show you when we're all built back up. If we do find any more debris in that one, we'll show you that as well, because we do have 2 carbs. So if we have to, we'll put 2 brand new ones on it. But remember, this was a crated engine. This was a 0 hour tested. So this carb was apparently all good in 1992. But there you go, a lot of things have happened since then, corrosion, whatever. So yeah, we'll come back in a minute when we've fitted some new bits on. I'm going to have to shout because it's raining quite a lot outside, which is me. So, we've cleaned the other carb. To be fair, the one that we thought was working was in fact alright. There's a tiny bit of dust and debris inside there. We blew it out with the airline, nothing major to report. All the other ports were fine, so we're happy with that. We've blown the fuel lines out to make sure they're okay. They were all okay rather. They were. So now it's just the struggle of fitting it back in the tank, back in the middle of the V of the engine. The most trickiest part is you've got to try and line up obviously these silicone water lines. It's a lot easier with silicone. They were older, obviously old-fashioned rubber, which is awful to work with. Silicone's a lot better. So we're having a bit of a power outage here as well.
Is that a good sign or a bad sign, Joe?
We've had thunder and lightning. It's hell of a day. Right, so the other thing we've got to look out for is lining up where the studs come through that hold the actual inlet down. It's quite tricky. And once I got an engine, not mentioning anyone's names, and they managed to trap this fuel line in there against the engine.
Mint.
Good work. Right. Now's the heavy part. I would film it, but it's quite a struggle. So I think we'll just fit it on, and then we'll do our swearing, and then we'll calm down, and then we'll show you it all fitted. So we'll report back in a minute. Well, putting that in was ever so easy. So the inlet's all back on, bolted down, spark plugs are all fitted back in, all 12 of them on the inside. So of course you've got 12 on the inside, and you've got obviously 12 on the outside. The inside ones, if anyone's ever done them before, they'll know damn well what a pain in the arse they are to do. So that was great fun. So they're all back on, water's in, everything else is good. Did have a bit of a mistake which really annoyed me. There's a engine breather pipe that I put on and then realised I hadn't put the HT lead line on. And I struggled for at least half an hour with that pipe. A lot of choice words we used. So that will have to come back off. But other than that little slip up, we're all about there. We've got no water leaks. We shouldn't, everything's new. So the next thing to go on is the bit I've been dreading the most. That's fitting the dynamo. And it weighs about the same as me, to be honest, this thing does. And there's a little dowel, I've probably showed you before, but it's there. And that's got to line up with that and slip into there while you've got the belt on.
And you've got the belt on, yeah.
And it sounds really easy, but it really ain't. So again, I would film it, but all it would just be is just continuous swearing and finger trapping. So won't film that because we don't have enough people. If Seb was here, we'd be filming it, but we'll come back and we'll re-intervene. Is it re-intervene?
Yeah, I think so.
we'll come back when it's on. The alternator actually wasn't, the dynamo, get it right, wasn't actually that bad. So it actually went on far too well, which is worrying now, because we're about to start it for the first time. So I'm going to get in there, turn the fuel pump on, get it prime up. Charlie's going to listen to look for leaks, and then we'll crank it, and hopefully we'll know straight away.
Fingers crossed.
It's on 12. So I'm going to go and get in the front.
Ready when you are.
Tell you what, I'm well pleased with that. That's running 100% better. I mean, I can't try it yet because it's too wet outside. Dad has gone on holiday, and I think he'd probably kill me if I drove this down the backfield.
Yeah, I think
it's
you're right.
literally thunder and lightning all night last night, and we've got, well, the back wheels waterlogged, which is a real shame because I was hoping to give this a good gallop around. But anyway, I'm pretty confident when it does dry out, we'll give this a good blast around the field and try and fling some of this extra dry mud off. But thank you all for watching. And one thing that I have realised, I was looking through my analytics, is 65 point something of you aren't subscribed. Like, we've literally rebuilt an engine. It's not difficult to press subscribe.
To be fair, Joe, I don't actually think I'm subscribed.
That's a